My fiancé's family demanded, sign this prenup or no wedding. I said happy to sign. Then I added MY clause. Infidelity voids all assets. Her parents' faces when their lawyer confirmed it was legally binding. Original post. I, 32 male, own a small but profitable HVAC business that I built from literally nothing. Started as a technician at 19, got my certifications, worked doubles for years, saved every penny, and finally opened my own shop 6 years ago. Nothing fancy. No trust fund. No rich relatives. Just me, my work ethic, and a lot of sleepless nights. My fiancée and I met 3 years ago at a mutual friend's birthday party. She came for money, like actual money. Her father owns a chain of car dealerships across 3 states, and her mother hasn't worked a day in her life. They live in one of those neighborhoods where the houses have names instead of just addresses. For the first 2 years, her parents tolerated me. Polite smiles, occasional dinners where her father would ask condescending questions about the trades like I was some kind of anthropological curiosity. But when I proposed last spring, something shifted. 3 weeks ago, her father called and asked me to come to their house. Alone. Said it was important family business. I showed up expecting the usual awkward small talk. Instead, I walked into their formal living room to find both her parents and some guy in a 3-piece suit sitting around a coffee table with a stack of papers. Son, her father said, he's never once called me by my actual name. We need to discuss some practical matters before you join this family. The guy in the suit was their family lawyer. He slid a document across the table. 53 pages. A prenuptial agreement. I'm not gonna lie. My first instinct was to be offended. But I'm not stupid. I flipped through it, and honestly, some of it was reasonable. Protecting family assets that predated the marriage, inheritance stuff, that kind of thing. Sure, fine. But then I got to the good parts. Any business I started during the marriage would be considered marital property. Any increase in my current business's value would be subject to division. If we divorced within 10 years, I'd owe them a lifestyle maintenance fee based on whatever standard of living my fiancé had become accustomed to. Meanwhile, her family's assets? Completely untouchable. The trust fund her grandfather set up? Off limits. The properties her parents were planning to gift her? Protected. Her mother actually smiled at me when I got to that section, like she was daring me to say something. This seems a bit one-sided, I said. Her father leaned forward. Son, you're marrying into this family. There are certain protections we need to ensure. You understand. I understood perfectly. They thought I was some gold digger trying to get my hands on Daddy's dealership money. 3 years together, and they still saw me as the help. Can I have some time to review this with my own attorney? I asked. Her mother actually laughed. What will be the point? This is standard. Either you sign or... She shrugged. Or no wedding, her father finished. I looked at my fiancée, who'd been suspiciously quiet this whole time. She gave me this apologetic look, but didn't say a word in my defense. That's when something clicked for me. Not anger exactly. More like clarity. All right, I said. I'm happy to sign. Her mother's eyebrows shot up. She clearly expected more of a fight. But I continued. If we're doing this, I want one addition. A mutual infidelity clause. If either party is unfaithful during the marriage, the cheating spouse forfeits all claims to marital assets and pays the other party liquidated damages equal to 30% of their total net worth at the time of divorce. The room got very quiet. That's unusual, their lawyer said slowly. Is it? I kept my voice calm. We're talking about protecting what matters, right? My fiancé's family wants to protect their money. I want to protect the actual marriage. Seems fair. Her father's face went through about 6 different colors. Now wait just a minute. It applies to both of us equally, I said. I cheat. She gets 30% of my business. She cheats. Same deal in reverse. Unless. I looked directly at my fiancé. Unless someone's planning on not being faithful. Of course not, she said quickly. Too quickly, maybe, but I filed that away for later. Her mother started sputtering about how this was completely inappropriate and not how these things are done. But here's the thing about lawyers. They're professionals. Their attorney actually nodded and said, it's unconventional, but it would be legally enforceable. Mutual infidelity clauses have been upheld in multiple jurisdictions. The look on her mother's face when their own lawyer confirmed it was binding? I wish I had a photo. We went back and forth for another hour. They tried to water down my clause, limit the damages, add stipulations. I didn't budge. Eventually, her father threw up his hands and said, "Fine. If you're both stupid enough to agree to this, sign the damn thing." We signed it 3 days later. Both of us. Witnessed and notarized. Her parents have barely spoken to me since. The wedding is supposed to be in 4 months. But here's what's been eating at me. Ever since I proposed that clause, my fiancée has been acting weird. Protective of her phone. Coming home late from work dinners. Little things that individually mean nothing, but together. I keep telling myself I'm being paranoid. That I'm letting her parents' distrust infect my own thinking. But last night, I saw a text pop up on her phone while she was in the shower. From someone saved as gym trainer with a heart emoji. The message said, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Miss you already." She doesn't have a gym membership. I'll update if anything else happens. Update 1, 5 days later. So things have escalated in ways I didn't expect. First, thanks to everyone who told me to get my head out of my butt and investigate properly. You were right. I was being too passive. After I saw that gym trainer text, I did some digging. Nothing crazy. I'm not hiring a PI or anything. But I started paying attention. Turns out my fiancé's late work nights always happen on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Same days every week. Her office has a parking garage with a time-stamped entry system. And she mentioned a few months ago that she hated how it always printed the exit time on her parking receipts because it felt like being monitored. Last Thursday, I found one of those receipts in her coat pocket. Exit time, 5:47 p.m. She didn't get home until 10:30. That's almost 5 hours unaccounted for. I confronted her about it. Calmly, just asked where she'd been. She said she went a happy hour with co-workers after work. I asked which co-workers. She got defensive and said I was being controlling and that her parents were right about me being insecure about the wealth gap. So yeah, that conversation went great. But here's where it gets interesting. The next day, her mother showed up at my shop, unannounced, in the middle of a workday. She walked in like she owned the place, looked around at my trucks and equipment with obvious distaste, and said, "We need to talk about this prenuptial modification." What modification? My daughter tells me you've been interrogating her about her schedule. That's not acceptable behavior. If you continue, we'll have grounds to void the agreement based on coercion. I almost laughed. That's not how prenups work. Our lawyer says differently. Then your lawyer is lying to you, or you're lying to me. Either way, I'm not modifying anything. She stepped closer, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. You think you're clever with that little clause of yours. But let me be clear, if you try to use it against my daughter, we will destroy you. We have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, connections, everything. By the time we're done, you won't have a business, you won't have a reputation, and you won't have a penny. I've dealt with angry customers, difficult contractors, and equipment failures that could have bankrupted me. Her mother's threats didn't scare me. They just confirmed I was onto something. Good talk, I said. Doors behind you. She left, but not before accidentally knocking a stack of invoices off my front desk. That night, I checked my fiancé's phone while she was sleeping. I know, invasion of privacy. But I was past caring about the moral high ground. The gym trainer contact had been deleted, but she'd forgotten to clear her photo gallery. There were selfies she'd taken in what was clearly a hotel room. Nice sheets, fancy headboard, definitely not our apartment. The timestamps matched her Thursday late nights. No pictures of another person. She was too careful for that. But in one photo, reflected in the bathroom mirror behind her, I could see a man's leather jacket hanging on the door. It wasn't mine. I didn't say anything. Not yet. But I did call my lawyer the next morning and asked about the specifics of our infidelity clause. What constitutes proof? What the process looks like? How quickly things could move if I needed them to. Her parents apparently got wind that I'd contacted an attorney because 2 days later, her father called me. "Son, I think we've gotten off on the wrong foot here." "Have we?" "Look, my wife, she's protective. Too protective, maybe, but she only wants what's best for our daughter. And frankly, so do I. What's your point?" I'm prepared to offer you a buyout. Walk away from the engagement, clean break, and I'll write you a check for $50,000. 50 grand to disappear. Like I was a problem to be solved with petty cash. That's insulting, I said. 75. Goodbye. 100,000. And that's my final offer. I hung up. What they don't understand is that this was never about money. I love their daughter. I built something real with her, or at least I thought I did. The prenup clause wasn't a trap. It was a test. A way to know if we were both equally committed. She failed the test before the wedding even happened. Now I just need proof that will hold up. Update 2, 12 days later. Everything came apart faster than I expected. After her father's buyout attempt, I went into full documentation mode. Screenshots of everything backed up to the cloud. Downloaded our phone records. We're on the same plan. Kept a dated log of every suspicious incident. But the smoking gun came from somewhere unexpected. My fiancée's cousin works at one of her father's dealerships. We'd always gotten along. She thought her family was just as insufferable as I did. She texted me out of the blue last week. Hey, can we meet for coffee? There's something you should probably know. Turns out my fiancée had been complaining to various family members about me. And during one of those complaint sessions at a family barbecue, she let slip that she was reconnecting with her college ex-boyfriend, the one she'd always described as the one that got away before she met me. The cousin felt guilty about not telling me sooner. She also told me the guy's name and that he was some finance bro who worked downtown. A quick social media search confirmed it. His profile was mostly private, but his most recent post was public. A fancy dinner table, 2 wine glasses, and the caption, Thursday night tradition with my favorite person. The timestamp was from 2 weeks ago. Thursday night. Of course. I screenshot everything. Then I did something maybe stupid, maybe necessary. I reached out to the guy directly. Sent him a message explaining who I was and asking if he could confirm he'd been seeing my fiancée. He actually responded. Probably thought he was being clever about it. Look, man, she told me you two were basically done. Said the engagement was just for show at this point. Something about her parents pressuring her. I'm not trying to mess up anyone's life here. But yeah, we've been hanging out. Hanging out was doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. But I had it in writing now. I forwarded the conversation to my lawyer. He said it was circumstantial, but combined with everything else, the photos, the phone records, the deleted contact, the contradictory stories, it painted a pretty clear picture. You have grounds to invoke the clause, he said. But be prepared. This is going to get ugly. I wasn't even remotely prepared for how ugly. The night before I planned to confront her, my fiancée sat me down for what she called a serious conversation about our future. I've been thinking, she said, and I think we should push the wedding back. Maybe a year, just to make sure we're both ready. Translation, she wanted to keep stringing me along while still seeing finance bro. Funny timing, I said. I've been thinking too. Then I told her what I knew. All of it. The photos, the phone records, her cousin, the messages from her ex. She didn't even try to deny it at first. She just got this cold look on her face and said, You went through my phone? You cheated on me. We haven't walked down the aisle yet. The prenup doesn't even apply. Wrong answer. Our prenup specifically defined the engagement period as covered under the fidelity clause. Her parents' own lawyer had insisted on that language because they wanted to make sure I couldn't back out. It never occurred to them it might work both ways. When I explained that, her face went white. This is ridiculous. You can't prove anything. I don't have to prove it beyond reasonable doubt. I just have to demonstrate a preponderance of evidence. Your ex already admitted you've been seeing him. She started crying then. Real tears, probably for the first time since I'd known her. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone who just realized they'd lost a game they didn't know they were playing. She called her parents before I even finished talking. Within an hour, they were both at our apartment, and for the first time ever, her father actually looked scared. Let's discuss this like adults, he said. I'm sure we can come to some arrangement. The prenup is the arrangement. You made sure of that. Her mother tried the intimidation route again. Lawyers, ruined reputation, all of it. I'd already sent copies of everything to my attorney with instructions to file if anything happened to me professionally or personally. I told her that. You're bluffing, she said. Try me. They tried another buyout offer. $200,000 this time. Then 3. You're not listening, I said. I don't want your money. I want what the contract entitles me to, which, per the infidelity clause, was 30% of my fiancée's net worth, including her trust fund, which she'd accessed last year when she turned 30. The trust wasn't family money at that point. It was her money, and it was substantial. Her father actually started yelling. First time I'd ever heard him raise his voice. Call me a con artist, a gold digger, a snake. I'm just honoring the contract you insisted on, I said. You wanted to protect your family's assets from me. I wanted to protect the marriage from infidelity. You got your protection. Now I get mine. They left that night. My fiancée moved out the next morning while I was at work. Took most of her stuff and left her ring on the kitchen counter. The legal process started immediately. They fought everything, obviously. Tried to claim the prenup was signed under duress. That I'd manipulated the language. That my evidence was illegally obtained. None of it stuck. The phone records were from our shared account, legally accessible to both parties. The photos were stored on a shared cloud service. The messages from her ex were voluntarily sent. The cousin's testimony was hearsay, but helped establish a pattern. Update 3, final, 2 months later. The settlement is done. Their lawyers tried every delay tactic in the book. 3 different motions to dismiss, claims of procedural violations, even an attempt to argue that the infidelity clause was unconscionable and therefore unenforceable. The judge disagreed. Apparently, when wealthy families insist on prenups to protect their own assets, courts are pretty unsympathetic when those same documents bite them in the rear. I didn't get the full 30%. Their legal team managed to negotiate it down to 18% by arguing that my fiancé's indiscretions hadn't risen to the level of a full affair since it was still ongoing when discovered. My lawyer said that was actually a reasonable outcome. Infidelity clauses often get reduced in negotiation because nobody wants to go to trial over this stuff. Still, 18% of her trust fund was a significant amount of money, enough to pay off my business's remaining equipment loans, buy out the lease on my shop, and purchase the building outright, and set aside a solid emergency fund. Not life-changing wealthy, but comfortable, stable. The thing nobody tells you about these situations is that winning doesn't feel like winning. It feels like surviving. Her family tried one last power play about a month ago. Her father showed up at my shop, not threatening this time, just tired. He said his daughter was devastated and asked if there was any way to keep this between families instead of having it become a matter of public record. I told him the settlement documents were already filed. He nodded slowly, like he'd expected that answer. Then he said something I didn't expect. She was wrong to do what she did. But you didn't have to ruin her over it. I didn't ruin her, I said. She made choices. So did you. I just held everyone to the same standard you try to hold me to. He left without another word. My ex-fiancée apparently moved in with her parents while she figures things out. I heard through mutual friends that the engagement with finance bro didn't last either. Once he realized she came with that much family drama and a public cheating scandal, he bounced pretty fast. Can't say I'm surprised. Her mother, for what I've heard, still tells everyone who'll listen that I entrapped their family. That the whole relationship was a long con. That I somehow knew she'd cheat and set up the prenup specifically to take advantage of it. The reality is much simpler and much sadder. I love someone who didn't love me back the same way. When her family forced us to put our commitments in writing, she showed me exactly where her priorities were. I just paid attention. My business is doing well. I hired 2 new technicians last month and we're booked solid through the summer. The financial cushion from the settlement means I can finally take some risks, maybe expand into commercial work, maybe open a second location. Haven't decided yet. I'm not dating anyone. Not ready for that. Probably won't be for a while. Some of you have asked if I regret any of it. If I wish I'd just walked away when her parents first pulled out that prenup. Honestly, sometimes, late at night, when the apartment's too quiet, I think about the version of this story where I just said no, where I didn't play their game, where I accepted that we came from different worlds and let her go. But then I remember her mother's smug smile when she handed me that document. Her father offering me cash to disappear like I was a stray dog. The way my fiancée sat there and let them treat me like a threat to be neutralized instead of a person she supposedly loved. They wanted to make sure I couldn't take anything from them. They never considered that I might have something worth protecting too. So no, I don't regret it. Not the clause, not the enforcement, not any of it. If you're going to play games with legal documents, make sure you're prepared to lose. That's it. That's the whole story. Thanks for following along. Take care of yourselves.